Episode 2 completely changed how I viewed this cast. Because after the first episode, I thought I had a rough idea of who liked whom. Then boom, episode 2 came along and basically said, absolutely not. The first thing I noticed was how different the women actually are. At first glance, Gyuri and YuKyung are both beautiful and easy to notice. But the more I watched, the more I realized they attract people for completely different reasons. Gyuri is an extrovert who acts like an introvert. Around people she likes, she becomes awkward, shy, and sometimes painfully difficult to read. There are often long pauses, awkward silences, moments where you're practically begging both people to just be more upfront with your flirting already. YuKyung is the complete opposite. She's an introvert who acts like an extrovert. She's loud, expressive, comfortable showing interest, and she never seems afraid of making the first move. There isn't much awkwardness around her, which is probably one of the reasons so many of the men were drawn to her almost immediately. Then we have Minju and Sowon, and honestly, these two are basically the same person in their approach towards relationships and personality-wise. By this point, Sowon was completely focused on YuKyung, while Minju seemed locked on to Songmin. Yet both of them showed affection in exactly the same way, including acts of service. Sowon wanted to cook for YuKyung. Minju wanted to cook for Songmin. They spent their entire grocery trip and cooking session focusing on other people instead of each other. That kitchen interaction was meant to build tension between both of them, but Sowon and Minju totally messed up that chance, even though they looked really good together. So the result? They sibling-zoned each other before dinner even started. It was like watching two co-workers successfully complete a project together. Very efficient, very friendly, very unromantic. Then the age and career reveals happened. And suddenly everything became even messier, starting with Minju. Minju currently works as a digital marketer, but she's actually in the process of changing careers and becoming a news anchor. Which means Songmin was the only person who successfully guessed her job correctly, since she is an aspiring news anchor. As for her age, Minju was born in 2000, making her 26 years old, although she introduced herself as 27. Then we have Songmin. My guy is a dermatologist, born in 1998, 29 years old. Honestly, the moment they revealed his profession, I wasn't surprised at all. This man has been giving stable, responsible, I have my life together energy since day one. Now, let's move on to Gyuri. And can we talk about this woman's resume for a second? Gyuri is a brand director for a clothing company. She designs modern hanbok fashion and even organizes fashion shows. Like, wow, that's a girl boss. It's always nice to see a boss lady on my screen. She studied fashion as her major and has built an impressive career around it. She's also a 1998 liner, making her 29 years old. What I found interesting was Sowon. Sowon prefers older women. After hearing about Gyuri's accomplishments, he became visibly impressed. In fact, he guessed that she was 30 years old. And seriously? For the first time, I felt like Sowon started looking at Gyuri differently. There was a level of curiosity from him that hadn't really been there before. Now let's talk about the biggest plot twist of the night. Sowon. Everyone in that house thought this man was somewhere between 32 and 35 years old. Even I would have guessed he was older. Turns out, this runway model was born in 2002. He is only 25 years old. This man spends his days walking runways, appearing in advertising campaigns, and somehow carries himself like he's already paid a mortgage and raised 2 children. Then we have WuYol. He's also a 2002 liner, also 25 years old, and he works in advertising at a marketing agency, which means the producers really looked at this cast and said, what if we cast younger men and older women and just watch the chaos unfold? Because that's exactly what happened here. The funny part is that most of the women don't seem particularly bothered by age differences. But Gyuri immediately stood out. She revealed that she has never dated younger men before. In fact, she said she tends to date older men, especially men who are significantly older than her. So now, I'm looking at her connection with Wuyeol and thinking, Producer Nim, what kind of social experiment are you running here? Then we get to YuKyung. YuKyung is currently a university student majoring in Korean traditional dance. And before her age was revealed, both So-won and Wuyeol seemed quite interested in her. But the second she revealed that she was born in 2004, everything changed. YuKyung is only 23 years old. The reactions were priceless. You could literally see the enthusiasm drain out of the room. Even YuKyung looked surprised by their reactions. Meanwhile, So-won completely lost his composure. My guy turned red. And that's when I realized his preference for older women wasn't just something he said casually. He genuinely meant it. For me, this was the exact moment So-won gave up on YuKyung romantically. Not because she did anything wrong, not because the chemistry wasn't there, but simply because she was much younger than he expected. And honestly, I understand why everyone was shocked. YuKyung doesn't come across as 23 at all. She has a very mature presence. The way she speaks, the way she carries herself. Even the panel members kept mentioning how mature her overall vibe feels. So when that age reveal happened, it felt like half the house had to completely recalculate their assumptions about her. Now, with all that context, let's talk about WuYol and Gyuri, because these two were absolutely feeding us during episode 2. WuYol was supposed to drop Gyuri off at a station that was only about 6 minutes away. And the very first thing Gyuri said? She admitted she felt a little bummed that she'd be getting off so soon. Now remember, this woman didn't even receive a text from him the previous night, yet she was already disappointed that their time together was about to end. That told me everything I needed to know. Gyuri was interested. And honestly, WuYol wasn't exactly hiding his interest either. Instead of dropping her off at the closer station, he drove her 2 stations farther, just so they could spend more time together. At that point, I was thinking, yeah, these two know exactly what's going on. The conversation flowed naturally the entire ride. WuYol kept steering things toward getting to know her better. He talked about how much he enjoys driving, how much he enjoys seeing the ocean. Then Gyuri immediately started suggesting places they could visit together, including a beach that was pretty far away from Signal House. So what started as a simple carpool to work quickly turned into discussions about future dates, long drives, beach trips, future plans. And what stood out to me most was how expressive Gyuri was during that ride. Although Gyuri can sometimes become awkward around people she likes, so awkward it gets weird. Yet at some point during this ride, she was fully engaged in the conversation, building on everything he was saying. The chemistry felt completely mutual. Then we had that hilarious moment where WuYol adjusted his hand while driving. The panel immediately lost their minds because they thought he was about to reach for her hand. Meanwhile, I was sitting there thinking, guys, it's day 2. Let's calm down. This man was not about to randomly grab her hand out of nowhere. Still, the reaction showed just how obvious the tension between them already was. By the time that car ride ended, I think both of them understood that the interest was mutual. He knew she liked him. She knew he liked her. Neither one of them was pretending otherwise. Then before they separated, they even discussed the possibility of him picking her up after work later that evening, which is actually a pretty big deal considering their workplaces are on opposite ends of the city. Now here's where my conspiracy theory begins. Later that night, WuYol arrived back at Signal House first, but not long afterward, Gyuri came running into the house. And when I say running, I mean running. So naturally, my brain started creating theories. My personal theory is that WuYol probably did pick her up after work, but maybe they decided not to arrive together because they didn't want to make their connection too obvious to the rest of the house. Do I have evidence? No. Am I still choosing to believe it? Absolutely, because the timing was just a little too suspicious for me. Then everyone headed to dinner, and honestly, the walk to the restaurant might have been one of the most interesting moments of the entire episode, because the way they naturally paired off looked like a dating show poster. WuYol and Gyuri, Songmin and Minju, Sowon and Gyuri. Every pair looked ridiculously good together. In fact, I think this walk was where a lot of the feelings started becoming stronger, especially between WuYol and Yukyouong, because during her confessional, Yukyouong mentioned that she caught up to Wuyeol on the walk. But unless I completely hallucinated that scene, I'm pretty sure it was actually Wuyeol who caught up to her. The two of them immediately started talking about their disastrous cooking from the previous day and laughing about it together. And that was the moment I started noticing a shift. Wuyeol's interest in Yukyouong was becoming much more obvious. Then dinner happened, and things got even more interesting. Yukyouong was laser-focused on Wuyeol. At one point, she even placed cheese onto his spoon using her own spoon. Now I know the show wanted me to scream and kick my feet at that moment, but honestly, I was laughing. Because tell me why she looked so proud afterward. Girl, you didn't cook it. You just transferred it from one spoon to another. Why are we acting like you just prepared a 5-course meal? Still, awkward or not, the tension was definitely there. And the more they interacted, the more convinced I became that Wuyeol's attention was shifting toward Yukyouong. At that point, I was thinking, well, there goes the Gyuri storyline. Wuyeol has clearly moved on. Except he hadn't, because the second the new guy entered the picture, everything changed. Jung JuHyun entered, a criminal defense lawyer born in 1994. And let me tell you something, the moment he walked into that venue, the energy shifted. At first, I thought he might be interested in Gyuri, and honestly, I wasn't exactly wrong. Gyuri immediately started talking to him. The two of them bonded over travel experiences, Italy, Spain, places they had visited, and the conversation flowed surprisingly well. But I don't think Gyuri's interest in JuHyun happened in a vacuum, because from where I was sitting, Gyuri had just spent the entire morning building what she thought was a solid connection with Wuyeol. They spent extra time together, talked about future plans, talked about driving together, talked about going to the beach together. The chemistry was obvious. Then she arrives at dinner and suddenly sees Wuyeol flirting with Yukyouong. And not subtle flirting either. The kind of flirting that everyone in the room can see. The kind of flirting that makes the panel start screaming. The kind of flirting that makes viewers start picking wedding venues. Of course she was going to feel a little insecure. Most people don't walk into a situation like that and immediately say they're hurt. Instead, they act like they don't care. And that's exactly what I think happened here. So, Gyuri did what many people do. She redirected her attention elsewhere, and JuHyun happened to be standing right there. The funny thing is, it worked, because the moment Gyuri started connecting with JuHyun, Wuyeol noticed. Immediately. Suddenly, the man who had spent the entire evening flirting with Yukyouong started paying very close attention to what was happening across the table. And that's when I finally figured out what was going on. As of episode 2, I don't think Wuyeol had chosen between Gyuri and Yukyouong. I think he wanted both doors to remain open. The way he interacted with Yukyouong all evening showed genuine interest. But the second Gyuri started building chemistry with someone else, he looked uncomfortable. Then, his confessional basically confirmed it. After watching Gyuri and JuHyun interact, Wuyeol admitted that things could become dangerous. Dangerous? My brother in Christ. Dangerous for who? Because a few hours ago, you were over here having a whole spoon flirting session with another woman. Now suddenly we're worried. Interesting. Then, just when I was convinced the catfish and Gyuri were becoming the next storyline, Sowon decided to enter the conversation. And somehow, the discussion turned into whether people prefer soft peaches or hard peaches. At this point, I need the producers to explain themselves. Because why are these two men passionately debating peach texture right now? Like, of all things to talk about, why are they saying they love hard or soft peaches, laughing my ass off OMG? My mind was already in the gutter, like, are we watching Heart Signal right now? Or a portion of his Man too? So I decided it was safer to move on immediately. Now let's get back to WuYol and Yukyouong, because the tension somehow increased even more. At one point, Yukyouong returned from the bathroom wearing perfume, and WuYol immediately noticed. Not only did he notice, he made sure everybody else knew he noticed. That entire interaction felt territorial, like his subtle way of saying, just so you all know, I'm making the first obvious move, so back off. And honestly, the chemistry between them was getting intense. By the end of dinner, I was completely convinced that WuYol's feelings for Yukyouong had grown significantly. But at the same time, I also felt like he didn't want Gyuri slipping away. Which brings us to the text messages. And this is where my earlier prediction came true. The moment I saw Gyuri and JuHyun connecting, I said to myself, WuYol is texting Gyuri tonight. Not because I knew for certain, but because if I were in his position and suddenly realized another guy was becoming a threat to my second connection, while I have been making obvious moves with another person, I wouldn't want Gyuri losing interest in me either. Sure enough, Gyuri sent her message to WuYol, and WuYol sent his message to Gyuri, which tells me that despite everything that happened at dinner, they were still each other's strongest connection by the end of the night. Then we had Seongmin. After spending the evening taking care of Minju, making sure she was okay, and giving her water when she wasn't handling the alcohol very well, this man turned around and sent his message to Yukyouong. I know Minju probably fell into bed that night, thinking she had gained some ground, only for Seongmin to wake up and choose chaos. Meanwhile, Yukyouong received the message and actually thought it came from WuYol because she had sent her own text to him. Then we have So-won, the same man who basically sibling-zoned Minju all day. The same man who spent most of the episode trying to pursue Yukyouong ended up sending his message to Minju. And honestly, I wasn't surprised, because after the age reveal, he had already started backing away from Yukyouong. The problem is that by then, Minju seemed completely focused on Seongmin, and in true Minju fashion, she wasn't changing course. Which actually makes sense. She mentioned that she sensed So-won might be younger than her, and since she's always dated younger men before, perhaps she wanted to try something different this time. So even though So-won finally redirected his attention toward her, she wasn't interested in changing lanes. And after watching this entire episode, I came to one very important conclusion. Dating a man like WuYol would be exhausting. Not because he's a bad person, but because he's handsome, charming, socially skilled, and naturally good at making women feel special. Men like that don't have to chase attention. Attention finds them. And because of that, the women around them are constantly trying to figure out where they stand. You would have to be emotionally strong to date someone like him. Very strong. Because episode 2 alone nearly stressed me out. But that's why this cast is so interesting. Gyuri and Yukyouong may both be beautiful, but they create attraction in completely different ways. Gyuri pulls people in slowly. Yukyouong pulls people in immediately. Gyuri creates anticipation. Yukyouong creates momentum. And WuYol somehow found himself caught between both experiences at the same time. As for So-won, my guy went from giving everything he had to pursue Yukyouong on day 1 to completely giving up the moment he discovered she was younger than he imagined. And honestly, I still can't get over how red he turned during that reveal. Anyway, those are my thoughts on episode 2. Let me know what you think in the comments, because this cast is already creating more chaos than I expected, and we're only getting started.
Thanks for watching. If this video got you thinking, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.